What's going on, Dragon Ball fans? Welcome back to another Dragon Ball Super discussion where I'm joined here today by MalikStudios, the creator of Dragon Ball New Age. We haven't had him here for quite some time now, and he's been busy doing other things, but I am here joined today by MalikStudios, and today we're going to be discussing the overall aspect of Dragon Ball Super, especially covering the arc of the Universal God Destruction Tournament. So, welcome, Malik. How are you doing? We haven't seen you in quite some time. Just how has everything been going on with you? Because I'm pretty sure you've been following Dragon Ball thus far, so how's everything been going on? You've been MIA for quite some time.
Yeah, it has been quite a while. I believe it's been over a year since I've been on any podcast with you.
I believe so, yeah.
I think the overwhelming consensus of my last visit was that I needed to be lynched. But
Oh, yes,
let's see if we
because
can
of.
get through this podcast without any kind of negativity like that.
But you see, what's interesting about today is the fact that the entirety of this arc is over and done with, and I pretty much got like your overall opinion as to how you felt about Super last time, and I wanted to know if your opinion has changed based on everything that you saw transpire within this, particular arc. So, right off the bat, I wanted to ask you, have you seen the Universal Tournament arc? And if so, what were your overall like thoughts about it? Because I mean, coming from a writer's perspective, because I mean, having to have the time to create your own manga, the time to create your own just like fan depiction of how you would write Dragon Ball. Like, what did you think about this particular arc, comparing it to like the other arcs? Because people were just like, oh man, Dragon Ball Super is just rehashing and they're just retelling the movies. But now people were saying, all right, this is the official opening of Dragon Ball, having this Universal arc come about. So, what did you think about the entirety of this story? And not only as a fan, but from a writer's standpoint, like, were you satisfied based on what you saw?
Um, I would have to say that with the Universe 6 arc, I am definitely I'm definitely more pleased with what happened during the Universe 6 arc than what transpired during the Battle of Gods and Resurrection F arcs.
Okay.
My overwhelming consensus between me and a couple of my other friends is that the Battle of Gods and Resurrection F arc of Super are both very, very weak. Me and a bunch of my other friends, including some members of Team Four Star, all believe that the movies portrayed those particular series of events a lot better. They were more compact. They weren't as drawn out. They didn't really overstay their welcome. Like, for to be perfectly honest, I went on hiatus from Dragon Ball New Age for a while. As I started watching the Dragon Ball Super version of the Goku Beerus fight, the Goku Beerus fight for me came off really hokey and, like I said, very drawn out. It overstayed its welcome. I was not a big fan of the way it was portrayed in the anime. I loved the way that it was portrayed in the film because the intensity and stuff was all there, and the way that the anime plays with cinematic time just really was a detractor for me. Um, but again, let's go back to Universe 6. I really like the way Universe 6, the entire arc as itself played out. I loved the addition of the new characters that came off. They're very new characters, but they were also very Toriyama. They were very traditional
Very
Dragon Ball
Toriyama,
style
and some
characters.
people actually thought that he was lazy for that. I wanted to address that with you because people that often called his designs, recycled, rehashed, lazy work. What are your thoughts on people that criticize like his designs for his characters? Because more often than not, people often want to make the comparisons to GT because GT had like some really badass looking designs.
Right.
You had Super Saiyan 4 who looked muscular. You had Omega with all the spikes. You had like certain aspects of characters that look really great in design. So what are your thoughts on people that criticized Dragon Ball Super's like design sets, like because people were saying, oh well, Toriyama's just being lazy, he doesn't want to create anything unique. So I wanted to get your thoughts on
Well,
that, being that you're a writer
that's the
yourself.
thing. Like most of the complaints that I have are about Super Saiyan God and Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan, or as people sometimes like to say call it now, Super Saiyan Blue. That's where I seem to see most of the complaints is with the design of those two Super Saiyan forms. I don't really hear a whole lot of complaints about the people from Universe 6. I actually think that the characters from Universe 6 were very unique looking. I think it was a lot better than the idea that like so many other people were coming out with for Universe 6 that we were just going to get counterparts of everybody. So we were going to have an evil Goku. We were going to have a good
Right.
Frieza. they were going to look exactly the same. They were just going to have different personalities. Now, let me ask you, which one sounds more boring to you? The Universe 6 arc that we got, or a Universe 6 arc with different personality counterparts of characters we already know?
Oh, absolutely. The counterparts part, that concept just sounds boring because we already know the outcome of, what characters have to present. Because these characters, we didn't really know the outcome as to what they were going to do. Like, for example, Hit, right? He was able to use the Tokitobashi technique. And that was something that I believe the concept going behind what you just said, rehashing the other characters and just having different personalities, we would have never seen that. So you're
Right.
definitely right on that part, definitely.
One thing that I found really interesting about Hit's design specifically, I didn't realize it at first until somebody kind of pointed it out to me. If you look, there are very distinct visual similarities between Hit and his outfit and Piccolo from Dragon Ball Evolution. Their
Really?
outfits are almost the same.
Huh. That's
It's crazy how similar they look.
That's actually a first because often I've heard people compare his facial recognitions and like the way he would react
Yeah,
uh
his
to
face
someone like
looks a lot
Cell.
like Cell,
Yeah,
but his
definitely.
outfit looks like Piccolo from Dragon Ball Evolution. Somebody did like a side by side of Hit and Piccolo from Dragon Ball Evolution, and the similarities are really striking. I was surprised, and I thought, well, that would be kind of like Toriyama to take something that's really super sucky, that's involved with his franchise, and to turn it around and make something awesome out of it, which is what I think Hit was a very, very cool character. I liked him.
Absolutely, one of the best actually. I mean, but like, I wanted to get your thoughts. Speaking of characters, I wanted to get your thoughts on every individual character that we've seen because we never really truly had like a showcasing of what someone like Botamo can really do. We've had certain things happen with Frost with him having to use the poison needle and the way he lied about his backstory of being like this some sort of heroic hero, but he turned out to be like a space pirate who caused wars. I wanted to get your thoughts on every individual character from a writer's standpoint because like just having them being shown in the show and for some of them at least not to have the screen time that some of us wanted. What are your thoughts on that? Because like as of right now, obviously the only two characters or three I would say that had the most time were possibly Hit, Frost, and Magetta. Kabe was only in there for about I'd say one episode and that was it. But what are your overall thoughts on like the presentation of each individual here? Like, do you think it was well executed, or do you believe that they could have made it to where they could have extended each character's story a little bit, just that much more?
Well, from a story standpoint and looking back at like past tournament arcs in Dragon Ball, it was a very solid tournament arc, in my opinion anyway. Though I have my own issues with how the tournament itself played out, but in terms of character, um, when it comes to like tournament competitors, unless you're always going to have your big bad, which in this case was Hit, who is going to be the main rival of the tournament. Like
Yeah,
in the past tournaments, it was Master Roshi, then it was Ten Shinhan, and then it was
King Piccolo.
Piccolo. But then you also have like your intermediate guys that like will give your guys a run for their money. And in this particular tournament's case, that's where Frost came in, and even to a lesser extent, Kaba.
Yeah,
Uh, like Batamo, I thought he was really great as like a one-shot tournament guy, and like his power where he basically you can't damage him at all. I thought that was really really cool, and it was a real throwback to the old Dragon Ball arcs, the way Goku had to beat him. Goku can't beat him by brute force like he's had to do everybody else. He had to use his wits and his smarts as a fighter. And that's what I loved about his fight with Batama. I was just like, yes, Goku's getting back to the way he was in the series that I love. He's not just, oh, well, I got to go and punch things. No, he's actually thinking and he's smart about it. And that's what I loved about that fight with Batamo. And
absolutely.
then, like with Frost, like I loved the fact that they threw us a curveball and he beat Goku despite cheating and the whole poison needle thing, which that whole can of worms for that whole week that Goku threw the fight and everything, and I was furious at people for thinking that Goku threw the fight, and then for it to be justified, like an episode or two later, that Frost was poisoning everybody and knocking them out, made me feel really justified because like people who thought Goku would throw the fight, that's not in Goku's personality. My main issue with that came with how, okay, so they're going to disqualify Frost, but then that allows Goku to get right back into the tournament. That I kind of took issue with because for me, I thought it was going to be an opportunity for, like kind of like what happened in the Resurrection F movie, for everyone else to kind of get their moment because
Yes,
now
yes.
Goku's been taken out of the tournament. But then they shoehorned him in right back, and I'm like, well, there, we just telegraphed how the tournament's going to end. Goku's going to wind up in the finals again.
Well, actually, prior to this tournament even happening, they were advertising in Japan, the poster between Hit and Goku being
Yeah.
like, headlined everywhere. So like you kind of had like that feeling that all right, well, at some given point, Goku's definitely gonna return because they're not just gonna keep one of the main, characters from the show just away like that, So
Right.
everybody already knew right off the bat, but
But I was hoping against hope. I was just like, man, maybe let's stick to your guns. Keep Goku out of the tournament. Give Vegeta and Piccolo and whoever else their time to shine. Let's do that. And then, of
And
course,
I think that was
but
like the biggest problem because if you look at the entirety of this tournament, it was basically 5-on-2.
right.
My biggest complaint was Piccolo. Like he was there, but he had no relevance. I would have pieced it to where it would have been Boltamo versus Piccolo. If that were the case, Piccolo goes for the offensive, but he realizes that he can't do anything, so he has to use tactics to eliminate him.
Yeah,
Because that would have showcased Piccolo that much more. But
yeah.
like that's my only problem. Like they had Majin Buu right wake up towards the very end, which kind of ticked me off because isn't Majin Buu's like supposed sleeping hibernation supposed to be where he can't wake up for like a really long time, and
Well, no,
I don't know
that's
where he
only
woke
when
up.
he's sealed away.
Yeah,
Majin Buu in the manga has actually fallen asleep, and when he sleeps for 8 seconds, he thinks that's a really long nap.
it was incredible. And then having Piccolo just be there, it was kind of like one of those characters that you didn't really feel for too much because when he was first announced, I was like, all right, so shit's about to go down. But then when he fights, he just gets eliminated, even though he was,
Right.
relatively holding his own against Frost. The entirety of this tournament basically boils down to 2v5.
Yeah, it pretty much did. Like Piccolo, granted he did more than he did the last time he was in a tournament where he just forfeited and gave up, which was honestly a part of the last tournament that he was in that pissed me off because but I mean I know why he surrendered. For him to I mean, I was really hoping that maybe he would be the one who eliminates Frost, but then it's just a whole big can of worms. But I'm kind of getting off topic with that. Going back to the characters. Um, Magetta again, I thought he was a really good one-shot tournament character. It's certain characters like you need your big bads and you need your characters that do have some backstory.
Right.
But for the most part, like most tournament fighters are going to be one-shot guys. You'll see them during one arc, and then you're likely never going to see them again. Except with the way episode 41 plays out, apparently they're all going to be back for the 12 universe tournament. Um, which I mean, to be perfectly honest, I'm kind of looking forward to just so long as Akira Toriyama does what he did and he designs really all new, really unique characters and doesn't play the rehash card. And especially, well, because of the lore, we know that there can't be an evil counterpart to Goku and all these other characters
Right.
in the other universes because only Universe 6 and 7 have an Earth and Saiyans and stuff. So
And they're
we can
parallel to each
kick the
other.
whole, okay, Bardock and Broly are going to be out of Universe 5 and shit like
Wait,
that.
what are you talking about? Broly was there. Broly was under the ring the whole time.
Oh, yeah, Broly was under the ring the whole
No,
time.
Broly was Zeno, but that's who he truly is.
Oh, yeah, yeah. How could I not
Remember
have
the
seen
Omni
it?
King. Broly's energy can never fade out, so that's right there. Broly's in Super, guys. I mean, like, I get what you're saying because people are gonna say, wait a minute, theoretically speaking, Bardock can be sent to a different dimension, which means he can be in Universe too.
Yeah,
Like the likelihood of that is very low, astronomically low. But I agree with what you're saying. I really hope that Akira does not go back and he does like just rehashes and stuff and like just recycled, characters.
right.
Which I really doubt he will. But my only concern is. 12 universes, 5 characters per universe. That's 60 characters. How are they going to do it? That it's going to be a very long arc if that were the case.
Well, you got to look back at like the other tournament arcs. The other tournaments they've had 300 or 400 people trying to qualify. So then they'll have their montage episode, which is all the qualifying rounds.
Right.
And they'll speed through the qualifying rounds until so like 12 universes. They might shrink it down to one character per universe or two characters per universe pitted against each other in a single elimination format. I think the 12 universe tournament might likely be like a more traditional tournament where in like the God of Destruction tournament, this one was more like gauntlet style tournament.
Yeah.
So we've got first competitor, next competitor. Whoever wins goes right on to the next match and has to fight the very next match. Then whoever wins that, it was a gauntlet style tournament instead of traditional single elimination style like we're used to seeing.
Absolutely.
Which was a little bit of an interesting change up, but I don't know. I kind of prefer the single elimination bracket format, I guess you could call it, rather than the gauntlet style that that Beerus and Champa.
I'm telling you, man, whoever did the story arcs behind this, like for me, this was reminiscent of like WWE style booking. If you think about it, the whole Kevin Nash, Hulk Hogan, one finger poke of doom gimmick at the very end with Monaka and Hit. You had the Survivor Series type of style feel. It was, dude. When I was watching this, I was looking at it as
was
if it was a
very
work.
WWE in that.
It was it was awesome.
But overall, like I would have to say, like if I was going to give like an A through F rating, I would definitely have to give the Universe 6 arc. It it has its flaws, but overall, I would say it was good. I would have to say I'm either going to give it a really high B plus or a just slightly low A minus. It was really good arc. It just does have some errors in it, in my opinion, anyway.
What about towards the
Overall,
end? The overall outcome.
the outcome.
What did you think of that?
Well, I mean, it was still very Dragon Ball, and now we've got the character that will make Mr. Satan eat his heart out. I actually loved the way the whole thing with Monaka played out. That Beerus is basically using him as a decoy to make Goku better.
Yeah.
Because he wants Goku to be better. I'm not even going to get into a power level debate because both Moscow X and I were discussing just the astronomical power creep and the way power levels are supposedly being played out in Dragon Ball Super, and the whole thing is just riddled with errors. So I don't even want to get into that conversation.
No, let's, because people are really concerned about that. They're gonna say, well, technically speaking, if there's an Omni King, he must be the very source and pinnacle of all power.
It's not even that. I'm not even concerned about about Zeno's power. I'm more concerned about how people say that there's like the 50-50 argument. Well, Goku with Super Saiyan Blue with Kaioken times 10 is now way stronger than Beerus. But no, there's people who are saying, well, Beerus says that Goku, even with that, is nowhere near as strong as Beerus. So, but like logically speaking, and the way that everything is supposed, logistically, that's not supposed to be possible.
No, absolutely, and that goes back to what I said.
It's Dragon Ball Super as a whole has a lot. There's a lot of errors. There's a lot of plot holes in the entire series as a whole.
No, absolutely, and
Which
that goes back
doesn't
to what I was saying
exactly
about.
kill its enjoyability, but from somebody who like me who pays attention to the details of Dragon Ball, it is very concerning. Um, but it's one of the reasons why I don't really include Super into the canon of Dragon Ball New Age, because one, it's still being churned out, so we don't know exactly how everything is going to work with Super, and two, there's just way too many errors for me to try and fix.
No, absolutely. There's a lot of inconsistencies, and the reason why I go back to Zeno is because like placing certain characters in certain tiers, it's no longer an option because prior to all of this even happening, I'm sure you remember when Akira Toriyama was telling and explaining the basis of Beerus was supposed to be a 10, Whis was a 15, yada yada. Now those numbers are no longer in effect because we have different characters. We have Hit, we have Champa, Vados, we have all these characters. So it's very hard to even say for sure who falls under what tier, and I think that's a huge flaw
Yeah,
in Dragon Ball Super because it has
yeah,
a lot of inconsistencies with power
yeah.
levels, especially
The
with
the
power levels.
power inconsistencies for Super, like I think when they were sticking with the film property, where where it was mostly self-contained and you could rely on those figures that Akira Toriyama stated. For those who don't know, Akira Toriyama said in an interview that Super Saiyan God Goku, when he is red-haired Super Saiyan God, in terms of power would be like a 6, and Beerus would be a 10, and Whis would be a 15, which all made sense because if you watched the movie and listened to it, Whis even said that it had been a while since Beerus had to use 70% of his power. So let's just level it all off. Let's just say Beerus has a power level. These aren't exact, but let's just say Beerus has a power level of 100,000. That would mean that Super Saiyan God Goku would have a power level of 60,000. So if Beerus used 70,000 of his power, he would still have a big power advantage over Goku. So it all makes sense. But then when you start throwing in all these other forms and all these other techniques, and then you have Beerus, and this all goes back to how I say that the anime is totally unreliable for coming up with your facts and stuff for Dragon Ball because the anime is very contradictory and it contradicts not only the original manga but it contradicts itself constantly,
Right.
and that's why I don't use it. Why I only stick to the manga, and that's the other problem that I have with Super is that I can't rely on the manga either because now there's the huge debate on which version of Dragon Ball Super is the real canon. Is it the anime version or is it the manga version? Because the anime version doesn't seem to reference the anime from which it comes all the time. It seems to stick closer to the manga. But the manga is definitely following the manga, or is it? But, because the manga is supposedly written by Akira Toriyama, but it's drawn by somebody else. So, theoretically, I can't really rely on either of them. And then it would come down to a matter of preference, but I honestly don't really prefer either end of the story. I guess if I had to look at one, I think I prefer the manga over the anime because at least the manga doesn't seem to go hog wild with all these transformations and power ups and stuff, and it seems a little bit more compact and refined, but still,
At
uh,
least not yet because the manga's still behind slightly.
the manga's still behind slightly, but I mean, even you like when you put out your first video about um, how the intro of Dragon Ball Super, the like
Right.
how it would basically cover like the first 5 episodes and stuff, like Beerus on that planet with the aliens and stuff
Yes.
like
Yes.
that. And then you watch Dragon Ball Super and it's almost entirely different. Yeah, some of the events play out almost the same way, but like there's still it's very very different. So unlike Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z and the Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z anime, which really closely followed the manga and only those filler arcs were really really different, Dragon Ball Super, the manga and the anime are both so very different from each other that I don't know which one you can truly call the canon version.
So
It,
towards the end, you would say that you prefer the manga more than the anime, correct?
um Well, even even in the beginning parts that we saw, for Dragon Ball Super in terms of the manga, I think I prefer the manga. When it comes to the Battle of Gods and Universe and Resurrection F, I greatly prefer the films in contrast to how the anime portrayed them. As I said, um, Universe 6 arc, while it's very enjoyable to watch the anime, I have read the manga chapters that we've gotten so far, and I think honestly, I do think I prefer the manga in comparison to the anime. It's really like I don't know. It's really hard to describe because I want to be able to trust one version wholeheartedly, but I really can't, and that's a big issue that I have with Dragon Ball Super, and is another reason why I go back to the last time I was on your show, where I say that I almost classify Dragon Ball Super as just basically another version of GT, and if
Uh
you really look
oh.
at it, well, if you look at it, I made this comparison on my Dragon Ball Facebook page, and I believe in your Dragon Ball Universe Facebook page,
Yes.
that if you really look at it, Dragon Ball Super and GT have a lot of similarities with each other.
Like what?
Um, okay, so Dragon Ball GT introduces a Super Saiyan form that looks completely different from the other Super Saiyan forms. It goes against the traditional gold-haired Super Saiyans that
Correct.
we always with.
Yes.
Well, Dragon Ball Super does the exact same thing. We get two Super Saiyan forms that go completely against the original gold-haired Super Saiyan, and they're obtained in ways that are completely different from how the regular Super Saiyan forms were obtained.
Okay.
In contrast with GT turning Goku into a child, the very people who turned him into a child are turned into children.
Okay. Yeah, I see. Okay, I see your points on that.
I listed like 6 or 7 different similarities. I can't recall them off the top of my head, but there were like 6 or 7. Oh, like the astronomical power creep in both of them, like way beyond anything we've seen. Super Saiyan 4 was supposed to be this apex of power. Like Goku was so strong in his base form that he could casually backhand a blast from Super Saiyan Gohan like it was nothing. Well, now Goku and Vegeta are both creeping back up into that same level of power. So there's the other similarity is where the other heroes are trying to do things during the tournament or during these arcs only to be completely overshadowed by Goku and Vegeta, and even Vegeta is now with like the battle with Hit is now again completely overshadowed by Goku.
Absolutely, and that's where a lot of complaints come in because people are gonna say, well, Goku always steals the spotlight. I mean, but at the same time, it's Goku's journey, it's Goku's story.
Exactly.
So only people who've known and been through like the original concept of Dragon Ball and read the manga and saw the original show would know that. But I
Right.
was like, since you brought up GT, I wanted to ask you, honest opinion, thus far at least, comparing GT and Super. Would you say that Super is better than GT, or would you say that GT is still slightly ahead of Super in terms of like the storytelling, the character
Well,
development?
in terms of overall enjoyment, it'll upset some people, but I think I do still prefer, at least at this point in time, I still prefer GT over Super
Really?
for the simple fact that while GT has errors and there are some episodes of GT that I really don't like, at least GT never had an entire arc that I didn't like. Super has had 2 arcs that I did not like. To be perfectly honest, in Super, the for me the first 5 episodes were really good. I loved the first 5 episodes of Dragon Ball Super. Then as soon as they started really getting into the meat of the Battle of Gods arc, I was just like, "Oh my god, I can't stand this." And then they had a couple of other little filler episodes in between the Battle of Gods and then the Resurrection F, which I thought were really good. I liked those filler segments. And then they got into the Resurrection F arc, and I'm like, oh, this is really hard to watch. And then they start getting into the little filler segments right after the Resurrection F arc, which, by the way, I loved that episode with Super Saiyan Mr. Satan. I thought that was
Yes,
funny as
yes.
hell.
Lying again about saving the world.
Yes, it was hilarious. It was classic Mr. Satan, and it was fantastic. I loved it. And then they got into the Universe 6 arc, which really picked up my enjoyment a lot more, despite the glaring logical failings and errors that it has. With GT, yeah, I did not like the fact that they turned Goku back into a kid right at the start, but I still enjoyed the first arc. and I enjoyed the arc after that, and I enjoyed Super 17, and I enjoyed the Shadow Dragon arc. There's been episodes that are peppered into GT where I'm just like, no, fuck this episode. But I at least with GT, it's only a couple of episodes peppered in there. With Super, I was just like, you know what? No, screw this entire story arc. I don't like this.
So would you say that Dragon Ball Super, I mean, leading up until the events of like this, multiverse tournament and everything that's coming, do you think at some given point, because they have mentioned Oob before, when they were going to recruit for the tournament, do you believe that at some point we're ever going to go past the the canonized episode to where Goku fought Oob at the World Martial Arts tournament? Like, do you think that Super is ever going to go past that, or do you think that
It's possible. It is entirely
at
possible.
this point it's
At
possible?
this
Why is
point,
that?
I don't consider anything off limits anymore. You know,
Why is that? Well,
before we got
why do you think it's more plausible now than before?
well, because like before, when I was very like adamant that I don't think of that I used to think that a new series was not going to be coming, um, because of the simple fact that Toriyama was getting old, and I really thought that the movies were basically going to be his way of continuing the series, and then just through overwhelming demand and stuff like that, then all of a sudden Dragon Ball Super starts coming out, and then just one little thing after another that I thought would never happen are coming to pass. So at this point, I don't consider anything off limits for Dragon Ball. Um, it is entirely possible that there'll be a point where Dragon Ball Super cuts off during this 10-year time gap between the end of Z and or the end of Majin Buu and the end of Z, and then picks up while Goku's training Oob. That's entirely possible.
That'd be awesome.
Because if you think,
Would you believe that would like completely decimate GT's like fundamentals of just being there
well,
anymore?
no, because Akira Toriyama to this day has always said that GT, well, one, he signs off on GT. He approves of GT whether people like it or not. He has absolutely no issues or problems with GT, and he is not actively going around trying to destroy it, because when he did his like kind of forward for the Dragon Box, he drew a picture of Super Saiyan 4 Goku. So he actually even said that he really likes the way Super Saiyan 4 Goku looks. He thought it was a really cool design, and he even said that the Dragon Ball GT is meant to be enjoyed in the same vein as the previous Dragon Ball movies. So you take that as it happened, but it didn't. It's a side story.
Right.
GT is a possible side story. It's basically like another timeline, like the Future Trunks special, where you see like future Gohan and all that.
Yeah.
That special is an entirely different timeline that does not affect the regular canon. GT and the movies are in the same way. They're just little side stories that happen in a different timeline. It's things that could have happened but didn't happen and therefore don't affect the canon. It's the same thing for me with Dragon Ball New Age. Dragon Ball New Age doesn't stay on that same linear path of the canon that all the that the regular manga and stuff does. Yeah, it follows the manga more closely than some of the other ones, which really seem to follow the anime more, but mine is still a different timeline and therefore has no effect on the regular main canon. It's its own self-contained side story. So GT is always going to be a side story. It's always going to be there, and it's always going to be marketed whether people accept it or not. Um, and Super, whether it goes past Z or not, is going to be part of the canon, or it's going to be just another variation of what happens past Z. So at that time, you're going to have three different options, or well, two different options. You'll have what happened in GT, and then you'll have what happened in Super, and then you have what happens in Dragon Ball Online, which before Super was created was actually supposed to be the
Canon. Yeah, I
canonized
remember.
version of what happened after Dragon Ball Z.
You know what's funny is there've been a couple of subscribers who've been writing to me. They were like, "Yo, Alex, now that they're gonna do like this multiverse tournament, can you imagine if like GT had its own like separate universe and they were a part of that?" I mean like fan wise, that would have been pretty cool.
Yeah.
But like realistically speaking, it's
Well, like,
not bound to happen.
yeah, Dragon Ball Xenoverse actually did a really good job of trying to explain what GT was, and they just said it's like a pocket dimension. It's a temporal anomaly based on our timeline. So you got to look at GT just like you look at the other movies, and you can explain it with that one simple phrase. It happened, but it didn't.
You know what's crazy? It's such a great time to be a Dragon Ball fan because a couple of years ago, I was one of the very few that was talking about, Battle of Gods 2 at the time where I thought because I paid attention to Battle of Gods 1 and right off the bat, like from based off the ending, I was like, all right, there is no way they're gonna like there's just no way they're gonna end it off here because there's so much lore to build off of. After Resurrection, after the same thing, I was like, man, can you imagine if they made another movie? And then they made the show, and now looking on it now, it's such a great time to be a Dragon Ball fan because there's so much
Right.
content that you can build off of here. Like nearly, I think that they can go years upon years of just creating more and more stuff. And from a company standpoint, yeah, I mean that'll create lots of revenue for them, for the action figures, for the DVDs and all that kind of stuff. I mean,
Video
and
games,
as
all.
fans, we get new stuff as well. And I wanted to ask you, like, how far along the lines do you think this is going to stretch out before finally they decide, all right, well, we've run our course, and I think it's time, that we put it all to an end.
Well, from what I've been able to gather, I guess they've confirmed that Dragon Ball Super is running for 100 episodes. So we're up to we'll be going on episode 42, and we know that this big 12 universe tournament is coming up. So they've already set up for that next tournament, which, judging by how many episodes this current one took up, which I believe was somewhere around like 10 or 12, I think something like that.
Roughly around,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, right around that mark. I could be, give or take a few. It's somewhere in the range of 10 to like 15. Um, if you're adding more competitors and you're going to do another tournament, then you can stretch that out a little bit more. Maybe not like stretching it out a lot, but you could still stretch it out a bit. So I'm sure that like we're going to see some more slice of life episodes. We're going to see Goku and the others, training and getting ready for this universe tournament, to try and be the very best that no one ever was for
Catch
all
them
you
all,
Pokemon fans
Pokemon.
out there. So they're going to be preparing and stuff, so you can put in some padding and filler and still make a really good story out of it. Um, are they going to make 50 episodes out of it? I don't think so. I think that we're probably going to get maybe like a little story right in between those, and then we're going to move on to the 12 universe tournament. The thing is with anime is the fact that they went with 100 episodes for Dragon Ball Super, um, is astronomical, considering that most new anime series nowadays are lucky to get 24 episodes, because most series that I see coming out now will run for like a 6 episode OVA or 12 regular episodes. So they run for a season and then they never get renewed.
Right.
So for Dragon Ball Super to get 100 episodes, that it means that they do have ideas for it. They right now, as of right now, they had their beginning and they have a definite end point. I have no doubt that they know where they want to end the tournament,
Yeah.
or how they want to end the Dragon Ball Super series. So they definitely do have an endpoint. Whether they want to continue on after that is up for debate right now. I wouldn't doubt that it could happen. Um, but like 100 episodes, I think they might start to experience a little bit of burnout towards that point, possibly. But like I said, nothing's for sure. Um, I don't with with the way Japan is right now, I don't see Dragon Ball Super extending past those 100 episodes. Um, but I mean, if the money's right, if the fan support is all still there, and I mean, Dragon Ball Z is always going to be marketable, so the marketability and stuff is there. So I guess it's just up to Toei Animation from that point to decide afterwards, whether they're going to extend it on for 100 plus episodes. But as of right now, I'm what do you call it? Subscribed to the fact that I believe that Dragon Ball Super is going to end at that 100th episode. Um,
I personally feel differently. I just feel as if there's so much you can go off of here. Like I think that the plethora is going to be to where they might go past 100 for sure. And I don't really believe that this grand multiverse tournament's going to happen next because to me it just seems so soon because
right.
we just
Well,
came up
like I
we
said, I think there's going to be like a tiny, like a mini arc
yeah.
right before it, and then we'll get to the 12 universe tournament.
Speaking of the end, how do you think this is going to go down? Because one of three theories as of today actually popped up. One of them being obviously Goku having his rematch with Beerus based off of the fact that he was hiding the Kaioken form, trying to perfect it with his Super Saiyan Blue form, the whole like shebang with that. So that's one theory. The other theory is the fact that they might end it off with this multiverse tournament with everyone just having like one giant final battle, and then the Omni King being very satisfied based on the results, and then everyone goes like their own separate ways. Or the third theory, which everyone really wants to happen, is having Goku and Vegeta fight one more time as Super Saiyan Blues. How do you think the final episode, or at least based on your opinion and based the way you see things, how do you think this is gonna go about like having one final episode or just one final run with Dragon Ball Super? Like how would you have Dragon Ball Super end based off of everything you've seen and gathered up thus far?
Well, like I said, I'm subscribed to the belief that Dragon Ball Super ends at episode 100. So let's theoretically, hypothetically say that the final arc for Dragon Ball Super is the 12 universe tournament.
Right.
Um, I don't. If it's set up bracket style, I do think that we could like potentially see like the finals will be that big clash between Goku and Vegeta one more time, just going all out. Super Saiyan Blues just tearing it up. Goku and Vegeta get their one last chance to settle their rivalry. So there could be a possibility right there. For me, I think that's how I would like to see it. I would love to see them, go down that kind of path where, the two, Vegeta gets his moments to shine, and he goes up against these really powerful opponents and everything, and his will and his drive to try and keep up with Goku, gets down to him and Goku in the finals, and then um, what I like in terms of like Goku versus Beerus for me, I don't know if like you should show the fight between Goku versus Beerus if it happens. Like say in the last episode, like Goku finally gets his rematch with Beerus.
Some Rocky 3 shit?
Yeah, like where you see them and they're going for that they're going for that first punch, and then you get that freeze frame where they're just about to make contact,
Yeah. Oh
because the
man,
theater
Rocky
of the
3.
mind, you'll be playing out like this epic battle in your mind, and it'll never be as good as you think it's going to be.
Because you don't know. It just ends right
Exactly.
there.
It's like with old school horror making. It's what you don't see that you're afraid of because your mind just goes crazy thinking of what's in the dark. You
Absolutely.
know, so
That
like
that that would piss off a lot of
it
people.
will piss off a lot of people, but that's the beauty of what Akira Toriyama does. Akira Toriyama is a really he's an old school writer like Hayao Miyazaki, and he subscribes to that same tenet of Miyazaki that in order to build your audience, you have to betray what they expect, which is what he's done with the Super Saiyan God forms, and um, to an extent what he did with the Universe 6 characters and stuff like that. He didn't go with like super bulky stereotypical fan creations that are they're like seven different versions of Broly and Omega Shenron and crap like that. He went with
7, man. That's a little bit of an understatement. There's
that's
like
that's an understated number. I'm making my vocal point. He didn't design five or six different versions of the same two characters
yeah.
like people do in fan creations. He created five very distinct, very different people, which was really cool, and that's something that I want. Every single one of those characters had something different to bring to the table, And that's what we
Absolutely.
need. We need more things that bring different things to the table. And, I mean, I'm not trying to say this as a way to toot my own horn or anything, but I kind of felt validated when I find out that three different things that I have thought up for Dragon Ball New Age wind up in one form or another coming to pass in Dragon Ball Super. I think of a Frieza race character named Frost who is supposed to be, he's a big bad, but he's not. He doesn't start off as big and bad as Frieza used to be.
Right.
And sure enough, there's a Frieza race character named Frost who's a big bad, but he's not big and bad as Frieza used to be. And then Dragon Ball Super mentions a Namekian book of legends, even though they never show it or reference it ever again. And sure enough, in one of my sagas, I have a Namekian book called the Book of Namek. And then I created, ages ago or years ago, I created four beings who were the lords of everything. They were the gods of all gods. And sure enough, Dragon Ball Super creates the gods of all gods. So, I kind of felt validated when things like that I created showed up in the series, which makes me feel really good about my series, but it also makes me feel really good about Super because I'm thinking along the same lines. But I mean, with them introducing Beerus and Champa, Vados and Whis, you knew that there was going to be a higher tier. There had
Absolutely.
to be something bigger than that, and we all thought it was originally the Dai Kaioshin, but there has to be something that governs all the 12 universes. Whereas like the Dai Kaioshin are kind of like a governor. They would be the governor of that particular universe. There
Right.
has to be a ruling body that governs the governors, which would be like the president, and that's what Zeno is. He's the king of everything. He's the president of the 12 universes, and he just delegates the roles to everybody else.
I don't know, man. Like I just still feel that there has to be at least one more above him because how do you explain the complexity of creation? You know what I mean? But that's a whole different subject
It's a
within
whole
itself.
different can of worms. I mean,
But
I
speaking,
explained it in Dragon Ball New Age with what the aspect lords are and what Xeno is to the aspect lords and stuff like that. I don't doubt that maybe at some point there's going to be the super king of everything.
that'll be
There's going to
that'll
be
be
something
something.
like that. There might be something like that coming in the future, but as of right now, our guy who sits at the top of the 12 universes is Xeno. He's the be all end all right now in the Dragon Ball Super canon.
Thus far, at least.
Thus far.
Speaking of, so what in the world is going on with Dragon Ball New Age? The people want to know because you haven't been creating much, but we also want to know one thing. Of course, like that has to tie in with Super. Are we gonna see an adaptation of somewhat similar characteristics from Dragon Ball Super going into Dragon Ball New Age in terms of possibly having some of the characters from Dragon Ball New Age encountering some of the characters from Dragon Ball Super, i.e., Vados, Champa, perhaps maybe Zeno, perhaps Hit or someone, because people want to know that because you're basing Dragon Ball New Age off of the continuation of Dragon Ball GT, so people want to know what about Super here? Is Super gonna have somewhat of a role in Dragon Ball New Age, or just Dragon Ball New Age is gonna specifically deal with what's going on now?
Well, the way that I have it written is that because Dragon Ball New Age it's its own timeline, it's its own self-contained
Right.
story. Because I chose to take place after GT before Super was even dreamt of. As of right now, Super itself, as a storyline whole, Super itself has absolutely no bearing and no effect on Dragon Ball New Age. The only thing that you could even include from anything related to Dragon Ball Super right now in terms of a story is the first Battle of Gods film, which is what I do consider that canon to Dragon Ball New Age. Um, Different things like lore wise, like Xeno, the king of the universe, he's part of the mythos and the lore of Dragon Ball. He has to be included. So I went back, I edited some things for Dragon Ball New Age. Xeno is part of Dragon Ball New Age.
Is he above the aspect lords?
No, he's actually, for what I wrote, because the aspect lords were originally supposed to be where Xeno is, what I did was I said that instead of ruling everything, the aspect lords are just everything. They are what everything comes from. And what Xeno is their representative. He acts on the behalf of the Aspect Lords because the Aspect Lords are nigh omnipotent. They have a lot of, they're really, really powerful. And they are not supposed to deal with matters that attend to the mortal realm unless it's of multiversal importance. So Xeno is their appointed representative to govern all the 12 universes, and they, for the most part, stay out of it unless it's a really, really, really big matter. Their basic function is just to be everything. So, because everything in all the universes and all of creation comes from them. The Reiki that Elijah wants to get to remake his body, that's energy that comes from the Aspect Lords, and it's found literally in everything. It's just in greater quantities in living beings, which is why he keeps attacking living people, because they can give him greater amounts of Reiki than he can get from pulling from the atmosphere and stuff like that, where he can only get minute amounts.
Right.
So he attacks living people to get the godly energy, this universal key that is the purest form of energy that's found in everything around you. He's basically taking back the energy that he gave to everything else to get back his body.
And what about Super Saiyan Blue and Super Saiyan God? Are we ever going to see those in Dragon Ball New Age, or is that something that's just going to strictly be within Dragon Ball Super and Dragon Ball Super alone?
Well, originally I was thinking of just leaving Super Saiyan God and Super Saiyan Blue completely out of it, but when I went back and did revisions to the Rigger saga, because I actually do include a slightly altered version of Battle of Gods into the canon. Like when Rigger first goes Super Saiyan 5, Goku even suggests, well, how are we supposed to beat him? Maybe if one of us goes Super Saiyan God. So the way that I had it written is that during the fight with Beerus, Goku expelled all of his godly energy to stop Beerus's World Destroyer ball. So he doesn't have his godly chi anymore, and him and Vegeta do go and train with Whis, but in this timeline, their constant bickering is a really it was a real sore point, and they kept waking Beerus up and agitating him. And it got to the point where it also really got on Whis' nerves, so he kicked them off the planet before their training was done.
Okay, that's a very interesting way of looking at things. Some people might say that doesn't make any sense because they settled their beef in Super.
Well, if they settled their beef in Super, then why is Vegeta still angry at Goku for getting back ahead of him again? That
Exactly.
rivalry is still there, and they still don't like working with each other. They do it because they were doing it in Super because they wanted to get stronger, but you can still see there's animosity on Vegeta's behalf towards Goku. Goku is kind of okay with putting it off, but a lot of people just don't seem to understand that. Goku didn't like the fact that he had to rely on other people to go Super Saiyan God. In the movies, in the series, and everything, both Goku and Vegeta don't really like the idea that they have to fuse to beat enemies because they want to beat them with their own power. They
And
don't.
that was referenced a lot too.
Yeah, they don't like having to rely on other people in order to win the fight. They like to do it on their own power. So, if you're looking at multiverse theory and timelines, every different possibility can happen. Dragon Ball New Age just happens to be a timeline where Goku and Vegeta's constant bickering, especially on Vegeta because he does not want to train with Goku, gets both of them kicked off Whis' planet because Whis is like, all right, if you want to act like children, then neither of you can train with me anymore.
So what can we expect to see from Dragon Ball New Age
Well,
in the coming
to get
months?
back on what I was saying with like Dragon Ball, with the Battle of, or not Battle of Gods, the Super Saiyan God and Super Saiyan Blue or Super Saiyan
Yeah,
God Super Saiyan. I originally was just going to leave them completely in the Battle of Gods film and completely cut Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan out of the story altogether. Um, as of late, while I've been writing my script and everything, I've been thinking of different ways that possibly Super Saiyan God or Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan could possibly come back into the story,
that would be great. That would be very epic, dude.
but nothing like solid Nothing very tangible at this point.
Well,
Um,
based on your manga thus far, because again, guys, keep in mind this has to do with Malik's manga. This isn't really like a part of Dragon Ball Super. But if comparing, Rigger's Super Saiyan 5 form to something along the lines of a Super Saiyan Blue, which form would you say is superior in your manga? Because if
well,
someone would say, well, why couldn't Goku and Vegeta just turn Super Saiyan Blue to fight Rigger while he was a Super Saiyan 5? How would you base that formula then?
well, that was the thing is like when power levels started to get really, really crazy, and I even had a power level video and stuff for Dragon Ball New Age, and the argument for power levels and stuff just got so out of control that I decided for all parties involved, for my sake and my mental stability, and for fans and stuff like that, it was just basically better to scrap all definitive mentions of power levels from Dragon Ball New Age altogether. So I have no definitive statements of exactly what the monetary value or the value of Rigger or any of these other characters' power levels are, except during the history of Rigger arc where their power levels were so small that they could be measured properly and it wouldn't affect anything. They're only in the thousands and stuff like that. Um, when I said the only definitive statement I made about power levels was based on Akira Toriyama's those small number scales that he did for Dragon Ball Battle of Gods, where he said Goku Super Saiyan God was a 6, Beerus 10, Whis 15. So when I was doing like the definitive power levels, originally Rigger Super Saiyan 5 was listed as a 27, and that was just ridiculous. So when I started going just by the statements in the manga, and I curbed it back a lot, and then did the Super Saiyan 5 multiplier based on what I personally have for the power levels, um, and then doing the whole thing where Rigger's power doubles and everything. The last definitive statement I make about power levels in regards to anything is that Rigger Super Saiyan 5, before his body gives out, at his very, very top best, he ranks a 13, and that's after his power has doubled multiple times. So when even in fact when he goes Super Saiyan 5 in the manga, he's not anywhere near that. I would probably say he's not even up to Super Saiyan God Goku at that point.
Okay.
But his power doubles, and I think by the end of the fight, he was maybe like a high 9, maybe a low 10. But at his very best, he can max out at 13, but that's as high as he goes. So
So
he
what
can
can we
get
expect from you in terms of Dragon Ball New Age in the next coming months? Because people there have been several people that wanted to see like different like little side stories of what would happen if Rigger encountered someone like Whis or Beerus and he fought them, or maybe perhaps like a different adaptation to what may happen. What can we see in terms of Dragon Ball New Age for the foreseeable future?
Well, I don't know what chapter it's going to be in, but I do have plans. Spoiler for people who follow Dragon Ball New Age. I do have plans for a future History of Rigger chapter for Rigger and Whis to actually meet, and I have a whole big plan with that. Um, right now, I don't have any like plans for like Beerus to show up. Um, and then, for people who do follow my series, they know that I was doing that opening video that I'm going to be doing for like if Dragon Ball New Age had like a show opening for an anime, I'm like
Yes.
working on an animation of that. But like even in my head, I was like toying with the idea of like, okay, what if like Dragon Ball New Age was like part of like Dragon Ball Heroes, and I had the image of in my head of like Rigger meeting Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan Goku, and like Rigger going Super Saiyan 5 when he's nice and healthy against Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan Goku, and like watching them like go at it for a minute, which I thought would be kind of cool. So maybe when I'm done doing the opening animation, I can do something like that as kind of like fan servicey because some people actually want to see that. They want to see a crossover between Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan Goku, and Rigger and stuff like that. But uh, the reason like I've been on hiatus and everything is because I had to go out and I had to get a new job. I don't have the free time to dedicate to Dragon Ball New Age like I was. I was pumping out like 12 pages a week. Now I'm lucky if I can do 4. And I just recently redid, I believe it was chapter 22, and I'm trying to work on getting those revamp chapters completely all done. That way I can just get on to chapter 36 and get all the new original material out. But right now, like the starting tonight, like I actually have it all written out. Is I'm doing History of Rigor Part 4 for Dragon Ball New Age Volume 4 to be released at Umicon this year,
Ooh.
where Rigger's mother starts realizing that Rigger's power isn't all that normal. Um, another little spoiler in it, like Rigger at this point, uh, his power level is right around like 5,000, and he's still a child, but he's a super elite child, and he's trying to catch up with Vegeta. Vegeta's power level, uh, jokey, is over 9,000. Because it keeps in continuity with what actually happened in the manga. Vegeta says that when he was a child, he surpassed his father, and his father, from what I remember, is supposed to have a power level of about 10,000. So Vegeta, at some point in his childhood, before King Vegeta died, surpassed him. So
Okay.
Rigger is supposed to have a power level of about 5,000. He's not going on as many missions and doing as many training exercises as Vegeta, but because he's a mutant, he's different. He comes back from a mission and only has a couple of broken bones and stuff like that. So he's in a healing tank, and the doctor who is talking with Rigger's mother is usually can get a general feel about how much a Saiyan will improve when they heal from their injuries. Well, Rigger is totally surpassing the projection of what his power level should have been at.
Ooh,
So,
okay.
like, whereas, like, with a couple of broken bones and some scrapes and stuff like that, Rigger should have gone from 5,000 to maybe like 5,500. At the very most extreme rate, he should have been over 6,000, or maybe right around 6,000. But at the time, while he's still in the healing tank and has more than a half hour to go before he's completely healed, his power level is already creeping up on 7,000.
Okay.
So he still has another half hour, and his power level is continuing to grow. And the doctor brings this to his mother's attention, and this is what sets into motion what is explained in Chapter 2 of Dragon Ball New Age about how King Vegeta, you know, tries to get rid of Rigger and his mother. So this Chapter 4 of History of Rigger is going to set into motion what gets Rigger exiled from planet Vegeta.
Which is something that I really can't wait to see.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to History of Rigger 4. There's not going to be a whole lot of dialogue on Rigger's half, but the way I wrote it out, and like History of Rigger 4 and History of Rigger Part 5, because it's basically History of Rigger Part 5 is going to pick up immediately after Part 4. I really like the way that like the script for it came out. I think it's really cool, and I think it'll be a really interesting side story. I think people will really enjoy it.
And you guys can go on ahead and find all of that down in the description where we have Malik's Facebook, his Patreon, his DeviantArt. Once again, I do want to say thank you for coming on here. And I really hope that we get more from Dragon Ball New Age because thus far, the adaptation has been great, incorporating the aspect lords, and we have Rigger, just after fighting Gogeta, having to come back once again once he's done recovering from his wounds. We have a bunch of stuff coming, and in case you guys want to go on ahead and check out Dragon Ball New Age, you guys can go ahead and find that on Malik's Facebook, DeviantArt, Patreon, and any final words before we go, Mr. Malik?
I really do want to take the time right now to just basically say a thank you to my fans, the Patreon supporters who stuck with me even when I wasn't producing content for a couple of months. I really appreciate people who stick with me when I go through these hard times where I can't really put out the content, but people still, I get emails every day, people asking me questions, people, wanting me to do things. One of the other reasons why I've been on hiatus is because I'm actually designing characters for a upcoming indie fighting game, which I'm really, really excited about. And as soon as I'm done with that, that's when I can get back to
The old
focusing
flow of
more on
things,
Dragon
yeah.
Ball. But I just really do want to send out a heartfelt thank you for everybody who stuck with me, people who weren't really sure about Dragon Ball New Age but went and checked it out anyway. Whether you enjoyed it or whether you really didn't enjoy it, I really appreciate you guys, giving my work a view and patronizing me just a little bit. To every little view and all the support that I've gotten from everybody. I usually typically get overwhelmingly positive support when it comes to Dragon Ball New Age, and I it wouldn't be anything without everybody who goes and looks at it and watches it. I got to thank you, Alex, for putting me out there all those a couple years ago when you did that first video about Rigor and Super Saiyan 5 Rigor fighting Gogeta,
No
and that
problem,
just
man.
drew so many eyes to to what I'm doing. And so you were a big part of me getting out there, and
No problem,
now I've
man.
I've sold, not including the conventions and stuff, but like when I put my books out there for general release, I've sold, upwards. I think a little over 1,000 copies I've sold, which is freaking
That's amazing.
that's amazing to me. I've sold over 1,000 copies of Dragon Ball New Age between conventions and book sales. That's freaking huge for me.
That is.
And you were a really big part of that, and I got to thank you for that. And I
Oh,
just
no
want to
problem,
thank
man.
everybody else. Like I said, whether you enjoy it or whether you don't, I really appreciate anybody who just takes the time to look at my work. It means the world to me, and I thank all of you guys for that.
Oh, thank you for coming on, man. Because it's always good getting your overall like point of view on things. Because you're first and foremost, not to blow smoke up your butt, but you are a very genuine person. You're a great writer. And that's the thing about me. Like even before Battle of Gods, I've always been into like fan made mangas and stuff because after GT we didn't really have anything. So what did I have to
Yeah,
do?
we
Like
were
I
we were
had
carrying
nothing.
the torch for a while.
Absolutely, man. I was reading Dragon Ball AF and I was going about here and there, and when I came across Dragon Ball New Age, I really really loved the concept. So I really hope that you do get to produce more because a lot of your fans, myself, we all want to see more from that. And granted, the current situation may not be easy with you having your current job, and I'm still trying to get fired from mine. I hate being at the bank, dude. It's one of the
Ah,
worst things you could possibly have. But again, I do want to say thank you for just always producing more and more content for us to enjoy. And as you guys, has heard right now, Malik is planning on working on more. So go on ahead and check out his Facebook, guys. Give it a like. Check out his DBNR and his Patreon. Thank you guys for watching once again. We hope you guys enjoyed. Tune in for more, and we'll be seeing you guys in the next update. Take it easy, everybody. Peace.